On this edition of Southern Newsweek, the remarkable ski area is set to grow. There's been a groundswell of protest from the rural community, and a Dunedin travel agent is swamped after offering a quarantine-free flight. Kia ora, I'm Melissa Barton. NZ Ski has revealed plans for a potential expansion of the remarkable ski area, extending southwards into the Doolan's Creek area. The proposal would see a tunnel of up to 300 metres drilled through a mountainside, creating what the company calls a truly world-class resort.
Building on potential, NZ Ski says it needs to expand through a mountain to grow the business at the remarkable ski area. However, the plans will need the approval of the Department of Conservation, iwi and other stakeholders.
But as we put more meat on it, we want to be very open with what our thoughts are and get feedback from a wide range of people. So iwi are going to be really important in this process, and we've had some conversations with iwi so far, and we can imagine there'll be other stakeholders who put their hand up, and we're just keen to hear from everyone.
NZ Ski Chief Executive Paul Anderson outlined the ambitious plans to a business audience at the ski field yesterday and says they want to more than double the resort's area.
With the Doolan's Basin just over the ridge, it provides us the opportunity to increase the size of the remarkable ski area from 385 hectares to over 900 and provide for future expansion for quite some years to come.
A formal proposal could still be 3 years away, but the company has begun geotechnical studies on the feasibility of linking the basins with a 200 metre to 300 metre long tunnel. A 1.4 kilometre long chairlift would be installed in the Doolan's to take visitors up to 1,930 metres at Helicopter Ridge, making the popular resort even more remarkable. In Queenstown, the South Today.
A number of southern towns and cities were brought to a standstill recently in what organisers called the mother of all protests. The nationwide protests were coordinated by the Groundswell New Zealand group, with many people in the nation's rural heartland coming out to support farmers.
From Invercargill to Oamaru, farmers and supporters came out on Sunday to join in the mother of all protests. The weekend event was a follow-up to July's nationwide howl of a protest. Speaking in Gore, Groundswell NZ co-founder Laurie Patterson says people who work on the land feel the government has been dismissive of their concerns.
We hope that the government will understand numbers and maybe take the opportunity to talk to grassroots people about the things that they're trying to force through.
His sentiments are echoed by colleague Bryce McKenzie, who claims politicians are setting an agenda without listening to rural folk.
Because we're getting a raft of regulations, and just about all of them so far have been unworkable. So there hasn't been enough consultation and going into what we're supposed to be doing on farm, and it's causing a lot of stress on the farmers and rural communities. Organisers
say while about 300 people signed up to take part, many more turned out on the day. Up the road in Balclutha, farmers were cheered on by people lining the streets, giving a boost to protesters.
It's disappointing that we have to go to these lengths to defend our way of life and the future of our families. This isn't about COVID. This is about the other agendas that are being forced past us under the confusion of COVID.
Well, this isn't even about COVID. This is about all the agendas that they're trying to push through under the guise of COVID. The DHBs, the Three Waters, the SNAs, the pressures on the farmers, free speech and choice are all gone now. There's no discussions or debates. This government is just forcing big changes through that people in New Zealand don't even want.
There was also a strong contingent of demonstrators in Alexandra and Queenstown. Grant McMaster says farmers in his area aren't afraid of change, but believes the government's procedures need to be looked at.
The government's just not prepared to listen, and we don't disagree with change. Nobody, change is good, but it's the way they go about it, and they just refuse to listen to what the people are saying.
About 70 vehicles and 4 tractors congregated at Woolshed Road near Hanley's farm in Queenstown in support of the movement. In Oamaru, the main drag was brought to a crawl as hundreds of vehicles inched their way through the centre of town. And in Dunedin, a parade of tractors, utes and other farm vehicles travelled into the Octagon, driving laps and honking their horns. Grey skies didn't deter hundreds of vehicles joining the event, with a range of signs protesting against the government's Three Waters reform, clean car package and a shortage of seasonal rural workers. Around the South Today.
Further north in Christchurch, more than 300 vehicles of all shapes and sizes travelled in convoys from the regions to Memorial Avenue. Farmers there took to the roads to vent their anger at government legislation which they believe is impacting their livelihoods.
Protesters waving placards lined the roads around Burnside as farmers in tractors, trucks and utes vented their anger. They were demanding changes to a range of government legislation. Sunday's event caused gridlock traffic in places as hundreds of people drove up and down Memorial Ave, tooting their horns and waving signs and flags. They had plenty of supporters along the route, along with amused local residents watching on. Christchurch coordinator of Groundswell New Zealand, Aaron Stark, estimates over 2,000 Cantabrians took part in the event and says the movement has grown way beyond just a protest by farmers.
Basically, farming at the moment is being swamped by a lot of red tape. And this is not just farming, this is all business. It doesn't matter if you're a tradie, if you're a sparky, it doesn't matter if you're a plumber. We've just got an avalanche of rules heading at us and swamping us.
Stark says keeping up with the regulations has resulted in more costs and a lot more paperwork for many in the rural community.
A lot of farmers are spending 2 or 3 days out of the week in the office, and this is rolling into weekends now. We as a country need to stop. We need to take stock of what's going on and go, okay, how can we make the compliance easier? How can we make the changes that are coming in easier and more understandable for the general person?
The protesters are calling on the government to make compliance changes simpler and more understandable for the general person.
The overall workload on farms is pushing people to the brink of suicide. I've lost mates over the last year because the amount of sheer rules and regulations coming into the whole thing, the amount of red tape. Look, we went farming because we love animals, we love environment, we love feeding people. And the sign behind me is read it, no farmers, no food. That's what it comes down to.
The Groundswell group is planning another large protest early next year, with details still to be finalised. In Christchurch, the South Today.
Repatriation is the main goal of a charter flight from Christchurch to Brisbane. Dunedin-based agent Vincent George Travel has been overwhelmed with interest since offering a quarantine-free flight across the Tasman. And that interest has only increased following recent news from Air New Zealand.
Facing the strain. Late yesterday, Air New Zealand announced the cancellation of 1,000 trans-Tasman flights due to continuing uncertainty about the borders, sending the industry into a tailspin.
When the announcement came through, of course, our phones and emails went ballistic. So many disappointed people out there who are desperate to get home. I've just been on the phone to somebody who's been 4 months trying to get back to Queensland.
Dunedin's Vincent George Travel has chartered a Qantas plane to take up to 150 people from Christchurch to Brisbane. Yesterday, seats on the company's flight were selling steadily. Today, following Air New Zealand's cancellation news, they've all gone.
We would consider doing another charter later in the month. It is subject to minimum numbers, so we really had to get 110 people to make this go. If there is another charter and we can get it, if we can get Qantas to agree for later in the month, a quarantine-free charter, then we would certainly consider that.
And late this afternoon, that plan was confirmed, with Vincent George able to charter a second Qantas flight on December the 10th. The travel agency is using Australia's offer of one-way quarantine-free travel from the South Island to help get people home.
The South Island's been an awesome place for people to be stuck, but when your home is actually several thousand kilometres away across the Tasman, I get it. People want to get home for Christmas.
The now fully booked first flight is set to depart from Christchurch to Brisbane on Friday, December the 3rd. The majority of passengers booking seats on the plane are from the South Island, with North Islanders facing extra challenges.
We had less take in the North Island. I think people were having to logistically make sure that they could be in a place for 14 days beforehand. So that proved some logistical hurdles for some.
It's understood the Dunedin Travel Agency is the only one this side of the Tasman currently offering quarantine-free flights. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Still to come on Southern Newsweek, a furniture legend puts her feet up after a long stint in the trade, and Otago Polytech's annual student fashion showcase moves off the runway to the big screen. Welcome back. Dunedin furniture king My Mate John is losing one of his best mates. Robin Westerning has been store manager at John's Furniture Warehouse for more than 31 years, but has decided to retire from the sales game for a quieter pace of life.
John's Furniture Warehouse has been a retail staple in Dunedin for more than 3 decades, but alongside My Mate John for the last 32 years in the furniture business has been his right-hand woman, Robin Westerning.
It wasn't my plan 32 years ago, but I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I've enjoyed all aspects of it, and especially working in this particular firm. It's been lots of fun.
She was with the business when it first opened in Stafford Street in 1990 with queues out the door. She's done pretty much every job in the store since then, from unloading trucks through to sales, payroll and admin. But it's serving the familiar and repeat customers that's been the most rewarding job.
We see the same faces and customers that seen over the 30 years. Many of them have come back, and customers are fun.
The business has had a number of challenges over the years, including a massive flood in the early 2000s. John's Furniture Warehouse has expanded to include partner stores across the country, along with importing and wholesaling divisions.
Well, Robin's been a huge part of the business, particularly in the early and the intermediate years, because it was really a team of myself and Robin doing everything. And Robin very fortunately had lots of skills to fill in the bits where I didn't have them.
As Westerning retires, Williamson is also happy to move into the background, with his sons Peter and Matthew taking the business into the future. And as for My Mate John's mate Robin, she's looking forward to travelling and spending more time with her grandkids. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Otago Polytech's annual student fashion showcase is moving off the runway this year to the big screen. COVID crowd restrictions forced the change, with Collections 2021 set to celebrate the work of Year 3 and postgraduate fashion design students with 2 live film screenings.
A stylish dress designed as maternity wear. These outfits are works from Otago Polytechnic fashion student Katie Mungai's Take Up Your Space collection, which will be on show tonight, but not in the usual way. This year, the annual Student Showcase Collections is stepping away from the catwalk and instead embracing a pre-recorded version of the show. Mungai's designs are all about empowering pregnant women.
This is a maternity wear collection that's designed for women who want to unapologetically be themselves and feel strong and confident and professional in their maternity wear.
She's one of 16 graduates whose work will be showcased tonight. This year the fashion show will be on the big screen, and postgraduate student Clara Bossand is looking forward to her designs featuring in the film.
So it's a research one where I was exploring the ideas of regenerative design, so looking at doing fashion that can have a positive impact, and so going beyond sustainability, which is a neutral impact.
The first of 2 live screenings is underway at the Otago Polytechnic, with the second starting at 8 p.m. In Dunedin, the South Today.
A team from Dunedin's Columba College have taken top honours at the Otago Daily Times Extra Quiz Contest. The school's quiz events have been held online through the year, but the competition was held live at Dunedin and featured teams from around the South Island.
To the winners, go the spoils.
I think we did a lot better than we expected.
The trio of Columba College students came third in the school's competition a fortnight ago, pleased to take out the title of Year 9 and 10 ODT Extra Quiz Champions. The social studies teacher, Elena Wafer, proud of this team, and the 2 others entered by the Dunedin school.
We brought our 3 teams here today. Some of the girls did really well in the earlier spelling rounds, and then some of the girls did really well in the current events rounds, so they've had a great afternoon.
The event is part of the ODT's Newspapers and Education program. This year, quizzes have been online due to COVID-19 restrictions, with 2,500 students taking part. ODT Marketing Manager and Extra Quiz Master Jeff Patterson was pleased today's event was able to go ahead, with schools travelling to Dunedin from Christchurch, South Canterbury and Southland.
Been absolutely fantastic, and the understanding coming from the schools and the teachers has been just out of this world. So they've worked really hard to make this happen, and we are absolutely grateful to them for that.
He says the event's a key way the company can engage with younger readers and viewers, showcasing the ODT and associated brands as trusted news sources. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Still to come after the break on Southern Newsweek. We catch up with those trying to save a Southern train and chalk up 100 days until the Women's Cricket World Cup puts bat to ball. Welcome back. The group who campaigned to save the Tairi Gorge line in the late 80s wants to take over the running of Dunedin's rail services. The Otago Excursion Train Trust put their proposal to city councillors recently with the goal of preserving the rail link to Middlemarch.
Hoping to keep tourism chugging along southern rail lines, the Otago Excursion Train Trust says their team knows the trains and railway well and believe they're the best people to operate the business.
Between our executive itself, our executive board of the trust, we have about 93 years of experience.
Two members of the trust presented their case to council this morning. The Excursion Trust was previously a minority shareholder in Dunedin Railways, but it gave up more than $824,000 in shares and $326,000 from a direct loan, following the pressure to mothball when COVID-19 hit in 2020.
We did it for 43 years before we can do it again.
Their proposal would see Dunedin Railways split in two, between rail operations and infrastructure and maintenance. That part would be a joint venture between the not-for-profit trust and the Dunedin City Council. Philip Riley says the trust wants to reinvigorate the tourism potential of Tairi Gorge Railway and is confident the pathway to central Otago is a viable avenue. However, the group's plan could be derailed if another proposal by photographer and cycling enthusiast Clive Copeman gains traction. He wants them to just rip up the train tracks, converting the route to a more economically sustainable multi-use trail.
And if we use our 60 kilometres of Tairi Gorge as a walking, cycling and force trail, I think we get more benefits economically and in community well-being.
The trust proposal would require an annual council grant of $1.5 million for a 10-year period. However, a $5 levy has been suggested for all visitors who bought tickets to help fund deferred maintenance and necessary upgrades. Councillors debated the Trust's proposal this morning, deciding that Council staff will report back to Council on possible options as part of the Council's 10-year plan. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Skaters, both young and old, showed off their tricks at Mornington's Skateboard Bowl recently to celebrate a 40th birthday. It wasn't one of the skaters marking a milestone, but instead the famous blood bucket facility itself.
Scraping along the concrete of the blood bucket, Mornington's Skateboard Bowl has grazed its fair share of skaters over the past 4 decades as they try to perfect their tricks. Boarders young and old gathered to test their mettle in the blood bucket on Saturday for a competition to celebrate the bowl's 40th anniversary.
Well, it's called the blood bucket because it's quite an intense place to skateboard, and the designer Nathan on the first day broke his arm.
Nathan McConnell designed the blood bucket when he was a student at Bayfield High School in the 80s. He created the design as part of a 6th form technical drawing project. It then managed to make its way to the Dunedin City Council, who gave the project a green light.
Become really iconic. Lots of people travel from all around the country and the world just to skate it.
Famous skaters like Tony Hawk and the late Jeff Grosso have tried their luck at the blood bucket. Zeedon Fellows travelled from Wanaka to skate the bowl at the weekend event, walking away as one of 3 winners.
It's crazy. Still in really good condition for 40 years old, yeah.
It's real nice. Definitely a piece out of that era though.
While Fellow's loyalty lies with the Wanaka skate parks, he reckons the Blood Bucket has its own charm.
It's a little bit crusty, but it's perfect.
And skaters will soon have more chance to hone their skills, with the DCC planning to upgrade 11 skate parks around Dunedin as part of their play space plan. In Dunedin, the South Today.
It's 100 days until the ICC Women's Cricket World Cup tournament hits off. Many of the world's leading women's players are set to compete in Dunedin from March the 5th next year, and the excitement is growing among fans.
A very civilised game of backyard cricket today at Dunedin's Ulverston Historic House. Otago Sparks and White Ferns players Susie Bates, Hayley Jensen and Kate Ibrahim getting into the spirit of the game. This afternoon's event was one of a number across the country, marking 100 days until the ICC Women's World Cup gets underway in Aotearoa, New Zealand. The Otago Sparks players matched up against ICC Women's World Cup champions Anna Campbell, Megan Gibbons and Tanya Cassidy, who were dressed in period costume. Women's contribution to the sometimes civilised game is believed to include the 19th century invention of overarm bowling. When Englishwoman Christiana Willers was apparently frustrated by the way large voluminous skirts got in the way of the then ubiquitous underarm technique. New Zealand's first recorded cricket match between two female teams was played in the Wairarapa way back in 1867. But as for the modern game, 3 round-robin World Cup matches are scheduled to be played at Dunedin's University Oval, featuring the White Ferns, South African and English teams. In Dunedin, the South Today.
Meanwhile, in Christchurch, the sun was just rising as New Zealand cricketing royalty of both the women's and men's game unveiled their city's countdown clock for the 2022 World Cup.
In Christchurch this morning, cricketing legend Sir Richard Hadley was on hand to help unveil the countdown clock that marks 100 days until the first ball is bowled in the Women's Cricket World Cup. Sir Richard admits he's a great fan of the women's game and called on Canterbury fans to come out and support the tournament.
Yeah, I think it's important for Canterbury people to get out there and support our team. We've got some great players and there's a lot of magnificent women cricketers, superstars of the game that will be playing here as well, and they've got excellent skill sets and their game has just gone in the right direction. So it's worth turning up and watching these women play the game of cricket.
Current White Fern and Vice-Captain Amy Satterthwaite is also excited about the big event and would love to see large crowds at the matches.
Oh, I'd love them to turn up in droves and just come out and support the World Cup. I think it's a really awesome opportunity for us to showcase female cricket in New Zealand, and especially in Canterbury. We've had a rich history in Canterbury of successful female cricket teams, and I think it's an awesome opportunity for people to come out and really show their support and be involved in what's going to be a really exciting tournament.
The White Ferns will feature in one of 3 pool matches at the Christchurch's Hagley Oval. The venue will also host one of the semi-finals of the Women's World Cup, as well as the final in early April of next year. In Christchurch, the South Today.
And that wraps up this edition of Southern Newsweek. For the latest news from the Southern region, head online to odt.co.nz, and you can follow Channel 39 on Facebook and YouTube. Like and subscribe to be notified of Southern news as it happens. Ka kite anō.
Public interest journalism funded through New Zealand On Air.